Hey y'all, thank you so much for tuning in to Heart with Latrice Sampson Richards. My name is Latrice Sampson Richards, and I'm ready to have a real talk about what it takes to exist in healthy relationships. Today's topic is how to find compromise in your relationship. Healthy relationships require compromise. Making the effort to bend on certain topics within the relationship strengthens trust and enhances intimacy because you know that the other person is willing to make the effort as well. The first thing to keep in mind is that compromise is not sacrifice. Compromise is coming to a middle ground on various topics that come up in any relationship. Things like finances, parenting, or even what we're going to eat for dinner tonight. Sacrifice is when you give up on your core wants, needs, or desires, the things you value the most. There may be a need for sacrifice in your relationship, especially when it really is for the betterment of the unit, but not every time. Repeated sacrifice in a relationship can build resentment. And let me tell you, resentment can burn through a relationship like a smoldering fire. It might not be quick, but it has the potential to do deadly damage. The key theme for compromise is that it must be mutual. There must be a mutual respect and commitment to the relationship itself. There must be a mutual decision to compromise and a mutual understanding on what the compromise is and how we're going to move forward. If it is not mutual, it is not a compromise, point blank, period. All parties involved have to be on the same page when it comes to making compromise in the relationship. Otherwise, one person may feel like it is a sacrifice, which again leads to resentment. Before you can enter into this process, you both parties must prepare for the compromise. We both have to understand what it is that needs to be compromised on, and then there's two things personally that each individual needs to be aware of. The first thing is that you have to know your ideal outcome. Your ideal outcome is kind of like, if everything happened exactly the way I wanted it to happen, this is what we would end up with, okay? That's what I like to call your threshold, okay? This is in a perfect world, this is how this would happen, okay? You must also be aware of your line in the sand. Your line in the sand is, if I accept anything below this point, I'm going to feel resentment. It's important for you to be clear not only about what your ideal is, but also about what your line in the sand is. Because if you take or accept anything below that line, it's not going to bode well for the relationship. The goal here is to meet somewhere in the middle, okay? And in order to do that, both parties must be open to having this communication with an awareness of what individual threshold and line in the sand are. And lastly, do not agree to something that you cannot follow through on. When you agree to the compromise, you are resetting the expectation of your partner on how we're going to move forward. And if you fail to meet that expectation, then you are going to bring about a slew of negative emotions and possible resentment in your relationship. Now, you might agree to something thinking that you can actually follow through. That's okay. Once you get into it, you realize this is a little bit more than what I can handle, or maybe you realize that your line in the sand is a little higher than you thought it was. Things like this happen. If that happens and you can no longer continue to agree to whatever the original compromise was, you have an obligation to communicate that to your partner so that you can re-enter the compromise phase and reset the expectation. Remember, it's all about being on the same page. Mutual understanding, mutual respect, mutual follow through. So that's how you find compromise in your relationship. Let me know how things go for you. If you need some help finding compromise in your relationship, I'd love to help you out with that. You can click the link below to schedule your very own heart-to-heart session with me at the discounted rate for Black Married Fly listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love y'all and I appreciate y'all. And until next time, be well. Bye, y'all.